Kieran's breath came out in ragged gasps as he stood on the edge of the forest, his body trembling with the weight of the decision he was about to make. He could feel the pull, sharp and raw, a magnetic force drawing him toward her. The woman who had been forbidden to him since childhood. Ella. Her laughter had once echoed through the halls of his home when she was younger, a sound that made him smile despite himself. But now, as she stood a few feet away, their eyes locked in a silent battle, everything had changed. His mind screamed at him to step back. She's your best friend's sister, it reminded him. This is a mistake. The pack, the responsibility, everything, would be at risk if anyone found out about what was happening between them. But the force drawing him toward her was too strong, and he couldn't fight it anymore. His hands clenched into fists, his wolf side itching to take control, to finally claim what had been denied for so long. But his mind fought him. The consequences. The pack. He was the alpha, and the pack's legacy came first. Always. Don't do this, his inner voice whispered. But it was too late. The damage had already been done. She stepped closer, her presence like a flame burning away his last bits of resistance. Kieran, she said softly, her voice trembling. We can't. We can, he interrupted, the words slipping out before he could stop them. His heart pounded in his chest, the weight of his own words suffocating him. He knew what this meant. He knew the consequences. But it didn't matter. Nothing mattered but her. Her lips parted in surprise. What are you saying? His throat tightened. This wasn't supposed to happen. He shouldn't feel this way. Not about her. But he did. He couldn't stop it. The bond between them was undeniable, and every instinct in him told him that this moment, was what he had been waiting for. But her gaze faltered. The fear in her eyes cut him deeper than any wound. Kieran, you're my brother's best friend. This can't happen. It's not. He stepped forward, closing the distance between them. Ella, he murmured, his voice low. You don't understand. You never have. It's not about him. He reached out, his hand brushing hers, and the instant their skin touched, the world shifted. The bond was alive, pulsing between them, and for the first time, Kieran couldn't hold back. The air around them crackled with intensity. It's about us, he whispered, his voice breaking. Her breath hitched, and her eyes fluttered closed. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The world, his pack, his responsibilities, the legacy of his bloodline, faded into nothing. It was just them. But then, reality came crashing back in, the weight of everything they had to lose pulling them apart. Ella stepped back, her eyes wide with panic. We can't, she said, shaking her head, trying to pull herself together. Kieran, we can't. You know we can't. His heart ached at the sight of her pushing him away, but his body refused to listen. She was his. And no matter what he told himself, no matter what he tried to convince her, he couldn't stay away. She was more than just his best friend's sister. She was the woman he was meant to be with. No matter the consequences. Please, he said, his voice low and pleading. Don't walk away from this. She looked at him, torn between her own feelings and the fear of what might happen. Kieran. I can't be the one to destroy everything. He took a step toward her. You're not destroying anything. We're building something. Together. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Ella opened her mouth to say something but closed it again. The words were trapped, just as she was. She wanted him. The pull was there, just as strong as his. But the fear of what this could do to the pack, to Liam, her brother, kept her rooted in place. Her eyes softened, but the hurt was still there. I don't know how to do this, Kieran. How do we make this work? How do we ignore everything we've been taught? Kieran's chest tightened at the thought. He didn't have the answers. He didn't know what the future held for them, but what he did know was that he couldn't live without her. And if he was willing to risk it all for this love, then damn it, he was going to fight for her. "I don't know," he whispered. "But I can't let you go. Not now. Not after everything." The silence grew heavier, the weight of their unspoken feelings crushing them both. Kieran felt it, that tension between them, the yearning that neither of them could ignore. But the longer they stood there, the more they risked losing everything. Ella's gaze softened, but it was mixed with sorrow. "You don't understand," she murmured. "We can't be together, Kieran. Not like this. Not while I'm his sister." Kieran's heart stilled, and a flash of anger surged in him. "You're more than his sister. You're mine." Ella stepped back again, fear flashing across her face. "Don't say that," she whispered. "We can't." The moment was shattered by a growl. A low, rumbling sound that vibrated through the air. Kieran's head snapped up, his senses on high alert. Something was wrong. The pack, the others, they were close. Kieran took a step back, his alpha instincts kicking in. "Get inside," he ordered sharply. "Now. It's not safe." Ella hesitated, her eyes flicking between him and the direction the growl had come from. "What's happening?" "I said, inside." His voice was firm, urgent. He couldn't explain it, but something was coming. He felt it in his bones. Ella hesitated, but the tension in his voice was enough to push her into action. She darted toward the house, looking back only once, the confusion and fear still clouding her expression. Kieran, his instincts on high alert, stayed behind for just a moment longer. He could feel the presence of the enemy, another pack. They had found them. His heart hammered in his chest. Ella was in danger. His pack was in danger. And the bond between him and Ella, his love for her, was going to tear everything apart. Kieran shifted, his body morphing into his wolf form in a fluid, terrifying motion. The power surged through him, every muscle honed and ready. The scent of the rival pack flooded his senses, and a low growl rumbled from deep in his chest. He could hear them now, moving stealthily through the trees, circling closer. He needed to get to Ella. She couldn't be exposed to this. She had no idea what was coming, and that made her even more vulnerable. The danger wasn't just to him, it was to her, too. His heart beat faster, the need to protect her overwhelming everything else. He took off at a sprint, the forest a blur around him. His heightened senses guided him, each step bringing him closer to the house where Ella had gone. He couldn't afford to waste time. Every second felt like an eternity. When he reached the edge of the clearing, he saw her standing outside, looking back into the trees, confusion and fear in her eyes. She hadn't gone inside. She hadn't listened. "Ella." Kieran's voice was a sharp bark of command, but his heart twisted at the sight of her standing there, so helpless. Ella turned toward him, startled. "Kieran, what's happening? What's going on?" "Inside." "Now," he barked, his voice tight with urgency. She didn't move. Her gaze locked with his, and for a brief moment, Kieran saw the pain and fear in her eyes, fear for him, fear for them both. But she was still standing there, frozen in place. "Ella, please." He growled, stepping toward her, but her eyes were wide with confusion, her feet planted firmly to the ground. The seconds ticked by, and Kieran could feel the presence of the rival pack closing in. They were too close now. Without thinking, he lunged forward, closing the distance between them, and grabbed her by the arm, pulling her toward the house. But as soon as he touched her, the sound of heavy footsteps in the forest made them both freeze. A figure emerged from the trees, a large, imposing werewolf, with eyes that glowed a dangerous shade of yellow. The rogue alpha. Kieran's teeth bared in an instant, his protective instincts kicking into high gear. "Stay behind me," he growled to Ella, his voice low and dangerous. The rogue alpha smirked, stepping closer, the air thick with hostility. You think you can protect her? A human? She doesn't belong in this world, Kieran. She has a weakness. And she'll be the one thing that destroys you. Ella's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the rogue, sensing the threat radiating from him. She felt the danger closing in, and a rush of panic surged through her. This wasn't just about her and Kieran anymore. This was about survival. Kieran stood tall, his body rippling with power. You're not welcome here. Leave. Now. The rogue alpha laughed, a low, guttural sound. You think this is still your pack, Kieran? Your legacy is nothing. I'll take what's mine. Before Kieran could react, the rogue lunged, his massive form crashing into Kieran's, sending them both tumbling to the ground. The fight exploded into chaos, claws slashing, teeth bared. The woods echoed with the sounds of battle, the ground beneath them shifting as the two werewolves collided with explosive force. Ella's eyes darted between them, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to run, but she couldn't leave Kieran. Not now. She had to stay. She had to trust him. But the fight was fierce. Kieran's strength was unmatched, but the rogue wasn't backing down. Each blow they exchanged sent shockwaves through the ground, their growls and snarls reverberating through the trees. Kieran's focus was on the rogue, but every instinct told him to protect Ella. To keep her safe. The rogue's claws raked across Kieran's side, drawing blood, but Kieran didn't flinch. His wolf side roared to life, fueled by the need to protect. With a brutal swipe, Kieran knocked the rogue to the ground, pinning him beneath him. Ella took a hesitant step forward, her heart racing. She could see Kieran's strength, his power. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for her, for the pack, for everything they had. She couldn't just stand there. She couldn't just watch him fight alone. Kieran caught her movement from the corner of his eye, and for a split second, his focus wavered. That was all it took. The rogue saw his opening and lunged forward, knocking Kieran off balance. Ella's breath caught in her throat as the rogue moved toward her, his teeth bared. You should have stayed out of this, girl, he snarled. Kieran's eyes flashed with rage as he pushed himself back up, charging toward the rogue with renewed fury. He tackled the rogue with a force that sent them both crashing through the trees. Ella watched, terrified, but it was then that something inside her shifted. She wasn't helpless. She wasn't just a bystander. She had to act. She grabbed a nearby branch, wielding it like a weapon, and rushed toward the rogue, swinging the branch at him with all her strength. The rogue howled in surprise as the branch struck him across the face, momentarily stunning him. Kieran seized the opportunity. With a snarl, he drove the rogue to the ground, his claws sinking deep into the rival wolf's throat. The rogue struggled for a moment, but then went still, his body going limp beneath Kieran's grip. Breathing heavily, Kieran stood, his body bloodied but victorious. He turned to Ella, who was still holding the branch, her hands trembling. Are you okay? Kieran asked, his voice soft but urgent. Ella nodded, her eyes wide with shock. I think so. But you. You were amazing. Kieran gave her a strained smile. You helped me. I couldn't have done it without you. She stared at him, the realization of what had just happened sinking in. They had just survived something, together. And it had changed everything. The bond between them, the pull they felt, was no longer just something unspoken. It was real. I'm not going anywhere, Kieran, she said softly, her voice unwavering. I don't care what it costs. I'm staying by your side. He reached for her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. We're in this together, Ella. No matter what. They shared a quiet moment, standing side by side, their bond stronger than ever before. But Kieran knew this was only the beginning. The pack would have to accept them, or everything they had fought for would fall apart. As they walked back toward the house, Kieran could feel the weight of the future pressing down on him. There was no turning back now. Their love, their connection, would either save them or destroy them all. Kieran's heart raced as he and Ella approached the house, their steps heavy with the realization that things could never go back to the way they were. The rival pack was gone for now, but the tension between them was far from over. As they stepped inside, the door creaked closed behind them, sealing them in a world where secrets had already begun to unravel. Ella looked at him, her face a mix of fear and resolve. "What now?" she asked, her voice quieter now, laced with uncertainty. Kieran ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. "We'll need to prepare. For the pack. For whatever comes next." He led her inside, the weight of his responsibilities pressing down on him with every step. He had known the risks, but now, seeing the fear in Ella's eyes, hearing the desperation in her voice, it was different. The stakes were higher, and the consequences would be far more dangerous than he had ever anticipated. As they entered the main room, Liam stood near the fireplace, his broad shoulders tense, his arms crossed in front of him. His gaze was sharp, his eyes narrowing as he saw Kieran and Ella walk in together. Liam didn't need to speak. The tension in the air was palpable, and Kieran could feel the weight of the question hanging between them. But it wasn't just Liam's gaze that held him. It was the pack. Kieran could feel their presence outside, waiting. Watching. Every moment was a ticking clock. And Ella was right there, in the middle of it all. What the hell happened? Liam's voice was low, controlled, but the fury behind it was unmistakable. He looked at Kieran, then at Ella, and back to Kieran again. Kieran stepped forward, taking a deep breath. "The rogue pack." "I know what happened," Liam interrupted, his voice cold. "You think I don't know what's been going on between you two? Do you think I can't feel the shift in the pack?" Kieran's jaw clenched. "I'm not asking for your approval, Liam," he said, his voice hard, each word a warning. "This isn't about you. This is about us." Liam's face darkened. "This is about the pack. The legacy. Your bond with her, your attraction, it's going to destroy everything we've worked for, Kieran." Ella stood quietly beside him, her eyes on Liam, her heart racing. She could feel the heat of the conversation, the weight of the history and loyalty that bound them all together. But she wasn't about to shrink away. She wasn't afraid. "I'm not the enemy here," she said, her voice strong despite the uncertainty swirling inside her. "I never asked for this. But I'm here now. And I'm not leaving." Liam's eyes flicked to her, his expression hard but not as cold as before. He wasn't sure whether to be angry at her, or at Kieran, or at himself for not seeing this coming. There were too many emotions tangled up in this moment, too many questions, and no answers. Kieran turned back to Liam, his eyes burning with determination. "I've made my choice. Ella stays. If the pack can't accept that, then we deal with it." Liam's eyes widened, disbelief flashing across his face. "You're choosing her? Over everything else?" "Yes." Kieran's voice was firm, unwavering. His gaze locked with Liam's, and for the first time, he felt the weight of the alpha title settle on his shoulders. But this time, it felt different. This time, the pack wasn't his priority. Ella was. Liam stood there, frozen, trying to process the weight of Kieran's words. The decision had been made. His best friend had chosen to put everything at risk for the woman he loved. But Ella wasn't just any woman. She was his best friend's sister. And that, above all, was what made this so dangerous. Liam opened his mouth, then closed it, the words stuck in his throat. He didn't know what to say, what to feel. He had always trusted Kieran. But this was different. Kieran's voice softened, the tension slowly draining from his posture. "I'm not asking you to understand, Liam. I'm not even asking you to forgive me. But I need you to trust me. We're going to make this work. Ella looked between the two men, her heart beating faster. The bond between them was evident, but so was the pain. She could see the strain in their eyes, the way they both stood, inches apart, yet worlds apart. "Please," she said softly, stepping toward Liam. "I don't want to be the reason this destroys everything. I never wanted that." Liam's eyes softened, just slightly, but he said nothing. The room was thick with the unspoken truth that would change everything. But just as the silence stretched, the distant howling of wolves reached their ears, sharp, menacing. Kieran's eyes snapped to the door, the hairs on his neck standing on end. His alpha instincts flared. The rival pack wasn't done. They were circling. And this time, they weren't just threats, they were a direct challenge. "I'm not waiting any longer," Kieran said, his voice now filled with urgency. "We move now. Protect Ella. Protect the pack." Liam nodded, his own emotions swirling, but his loyalty was clear. He could fight for the pack, fight for the legacy, but if Kieran was right, this was the pack's future. He couldn't let that go without a fight. Kieran turned to Ella, his eyes softening. "You stay close. Don't leave my side." She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. This was real. This was their reality now, and there was no turning back. She was in this, for better or worse. The house felt too small now. The weight of their decisions, the impending danger from the rival pack, it all pressed in on them. The past had been shattered, and they had no choice but to move forward. Kieran grabbed a sword and handed it to Liam. "Stay sharp. We're about to test the strength of our bond. And we're not backing down." Ella stood by his side, trying to steady her breath as the sound of the approaching wolves grew louder. Her heart was in her throat, but there was a spark of something inside her, determination, defiance. She wasn't just a bystander anymore. She was part of this world. And no matter the cost, she would stand by Kieran. The air outside was thick with the scent of danger. Kieran's heightened senses cut through the night, every movement, every rustle of leaves amplifying the tension that crackled between him and Ella. His grip tightened on the hilt of his sword as he stepped forward, his eyes scanning the trees for any sign of movement. Ella stood beside him, her breath steady but her heart pounding. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a fight. It wasn't just about protecting the pack anymore, it was about them, about the choices they'd made and the consequences that were already unraveling. "Stay close," Kieran muttered, his voice low and filled with an urgency that sent a shiver down her spine. She nodded, stepping a little closer to him, instinctively reaching for his arm. She didn't know what was coming, but she knew that whatever it was, she was in it with him. The sound of paws hitting the ground echoed from the trees, the growls and snarls growing louder. Kieran's eyes narrowed, his instincts locking onto the threat. He could feel their presence now, closing in fast. "They're here," he said quietly, his eyes flashing with determination. "Get ready." Ella's hand tightened around his arm, and she took a deep breath, steadying herself for whatever came next. She wasn't going to be the weak link. She wasn't going to stand by and let Kieran fight alone. A figure stepped out from the shadows, a massive, hulking werewolf with glowing yellow eyes and a menacing grin that sent a chill down Ella's spine. The rogue alpha. Kieran's lips curled into a snarl, his eyes glowing with an intensity that made the air around him crackle. "I told you to leave," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. The rogue alpha chuckled darkly, his claws scraping against the ground. "You think you can stand against us, Kieran? The pack is weak. Your legacy is crumbling, and you're just holding on to it with a thread. This ends tonight." Kieran's grip on his sword tightened, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. The rogue wasn't just here for a fight, he was here to take everything from Kieran. To destroy everything he had worked for. Ella could feel the tension radiating from Kieran, but she refused to back down. "We're not afraid of you," she called out, her voice stronger than she felt. The rogue alpha turned his gaze to her, his grin widening. You should be. Without warning, the rogue lunged, his claws outstretched. Kieran was faster, but the rogue was relentless. The two collided in a blur of fur, claws, and snapping teeth, the force of their clash sending a shockwave through the ground. Ella stood frozen for a split second, watching as Kieran and the rogue fought with ferocity. She could see the strength and determination in Kieran's every move, his wolf form shifting seamlessly between strength and agility. But she could also see the toll it was taking. The rogue wasn't just fighting him, he was trying to break him. Ella's heart raced, her mind a blur of panic and fear. She couldn't just stand there. She had to do something. She turned and grabbed the nearest weapon she could find, a broken branch from a fallen tree, and ran toward the fight. Kieran needed her. She wouldn't let him face this alone. As the rogue slashed at Kieran, his claws narrowly missing his face, Ella hurled the branch toward him with all her strength. It struck the rogue across the back, sending him stumbling forward. "Leave him alone!" Ella shouted, her voice filled with a mixture of fear and defiance. The rogue growled in frustration, turning his fury on her. But before he could move, Kieran was there, his body slamming into the rogue's side, sending him crashing into the dirt. "Stay back," Kieran snarled, his voice full of authority. "She's mine to protect." The rogue stood, shaking off the impact, and turned back toward Kieran with a menacing laugh. "You think you can keep her safe? She's already part of this world, whether you like it or not. She's a target now. And once the pack sees your weakness, everything will fall apart. Your love for her will destroy everything you've built." Kieran's chest tightened, the weight of the rogue's words sinking in. He had heard it before, the whispers, the doubts, the fears. But this wasn't just about the pack. This wasn't just about power. This was about Ella. And no matter what it cost him, he would protect her. His wolf surged forward, overpowering the rogue with a roar that shook the earth beneath them. Kieran's claws sank into the rogue's flesh, ripping through the air with lethal precision. Ella watched, her heart in her throat as the battle raged on. She had never seen Kieran like this, his power, his determination, his fury. He wasn't just fighting for the pack anymore. He was fighting for her. And she would fight for him. The rogue alpha let out a final, blood-curdling howl as Kieran's claws reached his throat, ending the fight in a flash of blood and fur. The rogue crumpled to the ground, lifeless. Kieran stood over him, his chest heaving, his eyes glowing with the power of his wolf. But as he turned to Ella, the fight drained from him. He was covered in blood, his body bruised and battered, but the look in his eyes was clear. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about them. "Are you okay?" Kieran's voice was rough, his gaze full of concern. Ella nodded, though her legs felt like they might give out beneath her. She had never been so terrified in her life, but there was a strength growing inside her, something that wouldn't let her back down. "I'm fine," she said softly, her voice trembling but steady. "But we're not out of this yet, are we?" Kieran shook his head, his face grim. "No. The pack is still divided. And the rogue packs won't stop." Ella's heart sank. She had known this wasn't over, but hearing the finality in Kieran's voice made her stomach twist. The future was uncertain, and they still had so much to fight for. But as she looked at Kieran, his eyes filled with resolve, his heart clearly fighting to protect her, she knew one thing for sure, they weren't alone anymore. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Kieran took her hand, his grip strong and reassuring. "We'll make it through this. Together." And though the future remained uncertain, they knew one thing, this was the beginning. Not of an ending, but of a new beginning. Together, they would fight. Together, they would survive. If you loved this story, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter of this journey. Comment below on what you think is coming next for Kieran and Ella, and don't forget to like and share this video with others who love a good forbidden love story.